Hey guys, it's Saturday morning. Welcome to episode 2 of the Faded Film Script podcast. I'm here with Rose, and we just saw Knives Out, written and directed by Rian Johnson.
Rian Johnson, I believe.
Rian?
No.
I'm not sure where he's from, but wherever he's from, the pronunciation is probably correct there.
Alright, Knives Out though. Wow. 2 hours, 10-minute runtime. I had no expectations for this movie. I loved it though.
Dude, I really freaking enjoyed it. And I don't remember the last time I saw a whodunit film that...
Like a Clue type. What was the last one? Who's the guy? Johnny Depp made one.
That's right.
Moriarty.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
I mean, the Sherlock Holmes films were like kind of whodunit-esque, but this was like a real classic contained story.
Original script too.
Original script. Yep. The characters were super interesting. We were talking about that in the car ride over. Like, each of the characters, each of the members, it's centered around this family, and each of the members of the family are, like, super unique and super interesting. So you get this, sense of caring about what everybody's place in it is, where that doesn't usually happen with big ensemble casts.
Yes. Because each character had a uniqueness to them and, like, a certain, and you felt like attachment to each actor because you already knew them.
Definitely.
Too. I feel like they drew casting really well.
I think so too. I mean, especially because, it was just really interesting to just see the chemistry, see Chris Evans in a role other than because he's been tied down as Captain America for so long. I really enjoyed. We were saying Daniel Craig having an American accent was super refreshing.
Well. And then the movie started off focused on, the Latina caregiver. Marta, right?
Yeah.
And, you knew she was going to be pivotal in it the whole time because you had no idea. You knew she wasn't part of the family for real. All right, here you go, Danny. Hey, bless the man, Danny.
Yes. Thank you, Danny, for hosting us for this week's podcast.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. So, Knives Out basically starts off with the dude dead is how it starts off. The old head who had all this money, who was an author. And you're like, all right, let's get into it right away. It starts off with, how did it even start?
It started
they were all
with
together, right?
Yeah, it kind of started with the family was there for his 85th birthday party, right? And then his caregiver is this woman Marta, who I thought this was one of the funny running jokes. Nobody in the family knows what country that her family's from. Oh, right, so everybody's like, oh, she's from Ecuador, Brazil. She's from Paraguay, she's from Brazil.
Right.
So
to show that they don't really give a fuck about her.
Yeah, they don't really give a fuck about her, even though she's the only person.
But they always said how she's family and they care about her. Right.
Well, I think part of that's because Thurman cared so much about her.
Thurman?
Wasn't that the guy's name? That was the last Harlan Thurman At any rate, whatever the family's name was, the writer, the guy who was at the head of the whole thing.
That's Matty Mark's Clean Kush too. So
yes, sir, Slayer King, Slayer King, baby. So at any rate, it was just super fascinating because you think that the story is going to be centered around this family and the murder, and then
which it was, of course.
It was obviously, but
in a totally different direction that you had no idea about.
Yeah, you couldn't have prepared yourself for the direction this movie goes in, especially because I didn't have any inclination that this caregiver character of Marta was going to play such a big role.
Such a big role, yeah. You thought it was strictly around. You thought Chris Evans was going to be bigger than he was for real. Chris Evans was pivotal, but his character didn't have a lot of on-screen time for real.
Definitely.
So it starts off with the two cops, I forget these. One of the cops was a good comic relief character. He had a funny voice.
And then Lakeith Stanfield played the other cop, and he was also great comic relief.
So it starts off with these interviews with all the family, trying to one at a time piece it together. You got Daniel Craig in the background being ominous.
Yeah, he's playing one key on the piano every time that he hears
something he doesn't like.
Yeah, exactly. Just to jar people and be like, what the hell's going on here? Which I thought was a really effective choice.
This movie honestly has so many angles to think about throughout the whole movie. So at one point throughout the movie, they show that there's blood. Oh my God, I don't even know how to go about this movie. So you think the guy, the head boss, Harlan, the dad with the money, with the book, killed himself. But then you realize quickly that Marta, the caregiver, accidentally...
So there was, I don't know what the other medicine was, but there's the morphine and then there's keto, whatever. Yeah, that the doses were completely different. And she's his caregiver, so she gives him they're talking about, oh, give me the good stuff, because he's like an old man and he's got all these aches and pains. So normally she gives him a nice dose of morphine. So the whole thing is that she's fumbling around with the medication, and then
Because he
she
tipped over the board,
Yeah.
which was not. I thought he tipped over the board on purpose. I had a crazy theory that Harlan executed all this to make it like fuck with his family and teach his family a lesson, because they were all money grubbing off him and piggybacking off his. The initial interviews, they made it clear that all the sons and daughters were piggybacking off his success and didn't really have their own lane.
and they had this sense of
But
entitlement.
they felt
Yeah.
like they did craft their own lane and their own thing. And then throughout the movie, you slowly see that Harlan was cutting people off, like not giving them their will money,
Yep.
or firing them from the company. Like,
Well, one of the big threads was actually that, so because Marta was one of the only people that he trusted, this family fortune that they all thought was, indebted to them because they, were just part of the family, he completely rewrote the will so that Marta would have the money.
and he told one of the family members, Chris Evans' character, pre-hand, but you didn't know that till later in the film, that Chris Evans knew Marta was going to get the money. So there was this will meeting session that they had.
Yeah, the when they were opening up the will, I forget specifically what that proceeding's called, but yeah, when they opened up the will and they read it and everybody found out that that's what he had done, and it became known to the whole family, then everybody's like, what the hell's going on, So
100%.
it was interesting because there were so many different emotional threads that you thought could have been the reason, so that
For a while, I had Walt, and Walt was my main. And Marta, though, I had Marta too because it started off with her, so you knew she was pivotal. But, like, you didn't have her as, like, the murderer. But the way this played out was so, like, psychological. Like, you're trying to put yourself into every character's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what was, like, the theme I felt like for this movie was, like, trying to show like white power, money grubbing, and it gave a win to a minority, because at the end of the movie, all the rich white people who had been living in this nice house forever are standing outside the house, and Marta, this lone foreign, how would I say it? This lone
another
this
thread of
lone
the movie.
immigrant from not America. She's at the end. She's standing at the house, in the nice house in front of them, and she's looking down on all of them. So it's like the minority who they all look down on and didn't even know what country she was from. At the end, has all the power and will probably help out the family.
And one of the other things that ended up playing a big part of the movie that I thought was super fascinating is her mother, Marta's mother, was not a legal immigrant. So they use this as leverage against Marta, because even after she becomes, the inheritor of the will, they're like, look, like if we freaking tell, whatever agency that your mother's illegal, like you're screwed. That money's gone. So like they feigned this like interest in her well-being to the point that like, you really didn't know whose side was actually, who was on whose
valid.
side.
Like, everybody was kind of valid in their own perspective, of course, because everything's about perspective. But, like, you didn't know whose motives were good or not. And at the end, each family member really wasn't dirty, for real, except for Ransom, who planned it all. And how do we even break this down? So that we kind of got sidetracked. There's so much in this movie. So the dad thought he was going to die because Marta accidentally gave him too many doses. She thought she did, but she didn't really. This movie is crazy. You have to see it for yourself. But so the dad advised his whole plan, thinking he was going to die to make Marta get away with it, and he killed himself. But Ransom knew that she was going to get the will, so he switched the medicines out on her to make her look guilty, like she was going to kill it to get this, so they could take the will money back from her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Chris Evans' character, his name is Ransom in a whodunit, so very tongue-in-cheek name. But at any rate, he switched the medication in hopes that Marta would actually kill his father with the dose of the medication. And the whole thing was...
But she didn't, because she chose the right one.
She's a really good nurse. She had her intuition, so she switched it because...
She didn't switch it, she just accidentally...
Yeah, she accidentally switched it. And ended up accidentally giving him the right one. So there's this confusion because...
So he wasn't even in any danger of dying.
Correct. But she thought that he had more or less like 10 minutes to live. And we were even talking about it.
He was showing no symptoms.
Yeah, she said like after 5 minutes he would be sweating and like all this shit. But like after 5 minutes he was still like heavily articulating this plan to ensure that she would not get caught for the murder and that that her mother wouldn't get deported and all this shit. So he like genuinely cared about Marta, which was, you know, interesting that his whole family of entitled brats and the siblings thought that she was like, you know, not deserving of this, and him, the one who made the fortune, is like the only one who was like, no, you're one of the good ones. And I think that was one of the other threads too, because like Daniel Craig's character Benoit Blanc is always saying like, you have a good heart to Martha's character, like this is why this happened, like you're a good nurse, you're a good person. Meanwhile, she feels this sense of such guilt that at some point, like, she literally confesses and she thinks like she's at fault. She puts herself in the position for Benoit Blanc to like literally, you know, he sees from there's a shot in the beginning of the movie where you see this little bit of blood on her shoe when she's visiting her mother, and like she doesn't notice it, we notice it, and you don't really know how it's going to come back into play.
To the audience as a viewer, you understand it, but nobody ever points it out. She doesn't notice it. You don't know. But the whole time at the end, Martha's having a conversation with Daniel Craig's character, the detective, who super good character, well done character.
We were even saying I'd be happy to see him solving other mysteries, but that's a point for you maybe another time.
And then Martha was all like, when did you know I was involved with it? And he's like, from the beginning, and he pointed out her shoe. So
and then you see the spatter once again.
And Martha was coming around with him the whole time. He kept her by her side the whole time. Yep. And he was just waiting for her to like, he knew, and like Martha had this interesting thing where like she couldn't lie, because if she felt a lie, there was some medical name for it. I don't know if this is a real thing or not, potentially. But if she lied, she would puke, and they revealed that early on.
Yeah, this became like an indicator for like different scenes when she's forced to, you know, compromise herself and be dishonest. And it was actually a really effective plot device because
at the end there was a character who knew that the Chris Evans character Ransom was guilty somehow.
Fran, I think.
Fran, the caretaker, who they didn't investigate her, they didn't talk to her, but you saw a couple scenes with her where she was like paranoid. She was talking to Marta one scene, like, and I made note of that scene. I'm like, she seems really like invested, like, so like, this character tried to blackmail Chris Evans on, and this was probably the most worst part written of the movie right here. This is my only criticism for real on the movie is, first off, the Chris Evans character behind the scenes was doing a lot of shit that they explained later in flashbacks. That like you're like, when did he have time to do all this? It seemed like he was like moving, teleporting.
Yeah.
And then the Fran character tried to blackmail him, but why wouldn't she just go to the cops? If she knew what he did, why would she try to meet him in some sketchy alley? It was almost too perfect for him to like kill her.
There were definitely aspects of incredibly well thought out film, but when you have so many intricacies and so many like red herrings and false. Yeah, so it's what I'm saying basically is that it's impressive that there's.
Yeah, but do you agree with me?
No, I agree. That whole
like if she knew the whole time that he was in on it, and why is she trying to blackmail him?
Yeah, no,
to get some money out of it.
That confrontation felt a little bit contrived.
It would have worked if they gave us some backstory on her and gave her a motive to want to blackmail him.
Yeah.
To give him like, oh, she wants some money out of it because that was everybody's angle. Yeah. So now maybe she's thinking, I know what you did. Let me get in on it. So, like, I would have liked that, but it was a little too rushed. So then, at the end, Fran is, like, in a hospital because Martha tried to save her life because she ended up on her dead body because Chris Evans' character tried to frame her for killing her or whatever. It's super complicated, actually. The Chris Evans character wanted her to destroy this evidence note that would make her guilty, not guilty.
So
oh my God.
So let me just say this. This is a film that it's probably going to take a little bit to process after you see it. If not just because there's so many like red herrings that open up different, avenues of possibility for what you think that can happen. So like you're trying to figure it out the whole time, and you think you know what's going on, and you see a lot. That's the thing, you see a lot.
Everybody knows a lot.
You see a lot, and like it's almost Citizen Kane-y in that you begin with the end.
Because it's no longer a murder mystery. You know who did it. You know how it happened. Now it's about like how do we solve the connecting.
Yeah.
Like
and there was even a point. There was even a point. Here, just watch the table.
My fault.
You're all good. It was a little shaky.
Continue.
Right.
What was the point?
We'll be all right. So, at any rate, no, there was a lot of different points where, you wanted to buy into, these different avenues of the story.
You thought it was this crazy,
Exactly.
this crazy niece Linda, or not niece, like stepsister or whatever, Linda, who was like had no bread, and her daughter was getting everybody was getting funded basically by the father. The father was hooking his whole family up, and he was realizing, damn, like he's 85, like nah. So he took them all out of his will randomly a week ago and gave it all to Marta. Like he planned this beforehand, before he even knew he was gonna die or anything. So like he was always gonna do that. And then he told Ransom, and Ransom like made this plan. He left the party early, and the whole time you didn't know he left the party early, like why he left the party early. You just heard an argument. And then the Nana.
Yeah, so for some reason this 85-year-old,
because Marta
he's got a mom who's alive who they don't know what age she is, but her vision's going, so like she's not unreliable in terms of what she's seen in a general sense. So there's like this moment when Marta's like sneaking back in, executing the plan, and she sees him and is like, "Oh, Ransom, you're back again."
Already back again. Already back.
And you don't really think anything of it because you just think like, "Oh, she's."
Because he already left once.
But we didn't know that until the third act.
Yeah.
So, but in the time,
he already left the house early.
He'd already left the house. Yeah, exactly.
So it would make sense that he was already back, but again.
So, yeah, there's really
a lot.
There's a lot in this film.
Great acting,
great acting. A lot of different interesting
Rian
characters.
Johnson, like his catalog is amazing. He really knows how to do it. He knows what he's doing. Like he makes good films. Last Jedi wasn't as good as it could have been, but still good.
This was like a very unique story, even though the genre itself is like tried and true. Like it really felt like the construction of the story and the way the pieces fell together. It kept you guessing. It kept you invested. Like because you didn't know, and because you didn't know where each of the characters fell into the whole thing, you were curious the entire time. Like even after some ends have been tied up, you're still wondering, like, well, okay, what's going on with Richard? What's going on with Walt? What's the deal with this confrontation?
Yeah.
So, like, even after you know, like, certain major aspects, up until the last several minutes of the movie, like, you still...
Daniel Craig has this great monologue where he breaks it all down, and the Chris Evans character is, like, very smug, and shout out to Chris Evans, because I like his acting in this role. Like,
it was really cool to see him, like, if you know anything about being in a Marvel movie, they make you sign this ridiculous contract. Well, not ridiculous, because they pay you a boatload of money, and I'm sure it's fun to be a superhero. But you're not allowed to be in any other movies or portray anything other than yourself. So it was really refreshing to see Chris Evans not being Captain America. And I'll say that again, because he's got incredible chops. Like, he was very good at this role.
I liked his smirk, like, the way he, So what would you say, like, the theme of this movie was, or the moral, or, like, what was the point of, like, creating this film? Like, because I feel like everything is political these days, like...
You know what, I didn't... There was some elements of, like, the family having political disagreements, but, like, at its core, it really felt like a film that was about, like...
The murder mystery, straight up.
And beyond that, like, how your family, like, doesn't always really ride for you, even if they say you do. Because, like, literally everybody, and they established this in the beginning, like, the siblings don't agree with, who is doing what. Like, everybody thinks that they're doing more than they're doing. Everybody has this sense of entitlement. And then at the end, it's... if there's any message, it's that the real kind-hearted people are the ones that aren't entitled, are the ones that are doing the real genuine work. Yeah, because, I mean, she even when she thought that she was the reason that he died, she felt so guilty that she came forward.
And that was what helped. But she never was. Huh. Honestly, this is a movie I could see again.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, straight up a movie I could see again. And
I think there would be... There's definitely vision. It was a very well told visual story, so I feel like there were probably indicators earlier on in the film
you wouldn't have noticed exactly.
That upon a second viewing you'd be like, "Oh, Rian, I see you,"
exactly.
Because there were a lot of those moments. But overall, I was really, like you said, we went in with even expectations, and I heard good things going in before, but I like to allow myself to have the experience, and it was a great experience. Like, just a lot of fun. Comfy chairs.
What would you rate that out of
10? I'd definitely give it a strong 8.5.
I was about to say 8 or 9, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there. I mean, look,
I'd say 8. A strong E.
I'll stick in an A5 just because, like, in terms of, and this is not like, this is not a definitive critic rating. This is like in terms of how much you should want to go see this movie, because like we're talking about it here right now. Like we would go see it again.
Again, for
so like definitely worth your money to go see. Really entertaining, and not something that just like spoon feeds you a story. Like you have to work for it a little bit, and like
which I like.
You have to pay your investment into the story.
We got it for $6 though Saturday.
Yeah, high key Saturday matinees at AMC were clutch. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed the experience. And hats off to Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
I hope you do more stuff like this.
I'd go see it. That's the day. This is Matt Marsh Rose Faded Film Strip Review.
Absolutely.
Peace
Be well.
Love.
Peace and
I hope
love.
you find it. Great.
Dope.
Pleasure.
Absolutely.
That works.